Welcome to the MMAnews.com podcast, powered by Pony Cake Sports, with your hosts, Josh Stevens and Tim Thompson. Woo!
Hey there, everybody. We are finally back with a new episode for the MMAnews.com podcast. As always, I'm here with Tim Thompson. Tim, how's it going?
Doing fantastic, Josh. Glad to be back here in studio with you.
And, Tim, we have had quite a bit happen since we've talked last. But you know what? We are not going to go that far back. We are just going to go a couple cards back.
All right.
And but before we get to any of the stuff that we're going to recap, we're going to talk a little bit Bellator 198, Bellator 199, UFC 224. But we also have special guests today, 4-2 fighter, former cast member of season 26 of The Ultimate Fighter, Gillian Robertson. Tell us about her.
Gillian
Robertson, sorry.
Oh, man. Ron Burgundy, you'll read anything off that teleprompter. Gillian Robertson, it's, she was the 15 seed, kind of a big underdog on Tough 26. But she's, fought Barb Honchak. I had the tough loss there, but came back in the finale, fought Emily Whitmire, won that fight, and now she's got a big fight in front of her against Molly McCann in Europe. So big opportunity for her to kind of prove that she belongs in the UFC, and I'm very excited to talk to her about the whole tough experience and kind of what's new with her.
All right, before we get to her, obviously, I want to talk Bellator 198, headlined by Fedor and Frank Mir. But before we get to that, I want to talk Dillon Danis versus Kyle Walker.
All right, we'll pair 198 and 199. We're stretching a little bit. So
I know.
We'll talk because it's all the heavyweight Grand Prix. It's all the same anyway.
But I want to talk Dillon Danis and Kyle Walker. Dillon Danis came out. He ended up winning with the submission toe hold. 1 minute 38 seconds of the very first round for this fight. What did you think of the promotional debut, MMA debut of one Dillon Danis?
It was everything you want in a promotional debut. He's known as a submission expert, right?
Yes.
And he goes out there and he little brothers the dude.
Yeah.
He little brothers. He goes, listen, little piggy went to market and twists the mother trucker off. And does what he does. What else do you want? When you're promoting a submission expert, you want him to go out there and get a submission. That's exactly what he did.
What did you think of the fact that he came out and said that he should be a part owner of Bellator?
So,
he's taking page 96 out of Mr. Conor McGregor's.
I want you go and air your grievances first, because I know what this is about. This is hey, I'm leading Tim into a trap. I want to air my grievances. You don't like it.
No, I don't.
Listen.
Now, let me tell you this. He did exactly what he needed to do to come out and get a submission victory. Looking at his stand-up, if there's somebody with some actual takedown defense and is able to make Dillon Danis stand up and strike, I am very worried to see what he's going to be able to do in the striking game. Now, I could be completely wrong because, Conor McGregor, he's pretty decent at striking as well, so he's learning from one of the best, and they do have one of the best coaches. So maybe his striking is a little bit better than we think, but from that short, very, very short window frame that we saw of Dillon in his fight, did not look as the greatest striker. But again, it was only 1 minute and 38 seconds.
I'm going to read to you the thoughts that I had on April 28th, because I watched that card live. Right? That's when it happened, April 28th. I was supposed to be there, live. I was supposed to be covering that. Had some family issues, wasn't able to make it. My tweet was, backstage, Danis called out Ben Askren.
Yep.
Which sounds absurd. But, while Danis' gimmick seems disingenuous, the iron is hot right now for him. People will tune in hoping he gets his ass kicked. Smart for him to keep pushing. Why not? Does it seem fake? Does it seem awful? Yes, but who cares? It's what it is. Let him try to make the most of it. Is he riding coattails? Yeah, but why are you faulting him? Any MMA fighter, should do it. He's top world class in his sport of jiu-jitsu. Money's not really there for that. Is he the very best in the world? Who knows? But is he top in the world? Yes. Let him go and try to make a name for himself in whatever way that he can. Any fighter who said that they wouldn't do the same is a liar.
Fair enough, Tim. Fair enough. What do you think Bellator should do with Dillon Danis next? What should they do with the matchup?
Just bring him along, little by little. Bring him along. I think they kind of learned their lesson from Aaron Pico.
Yeah.
They shouldn't throw him in there right away. Pico's a different animal. But I think they're going to do with Dillon Danis what they've done with all their All-American wrestlers, right? Bring them along, string them along, let him get 4 or 5 fights. I'm interested to see if they let him fall to the undercard, or if he lets because that's where he should be.
He should be.
That's where he should be.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Listen, when you have guys like Taiwan Claxton, when you have guys like Logan Storley, these elite wrestlers who then are have been on the undercard at times early in their career. So I get that you're a world-class jiu-jitsu. I get who you're quote-unquote related to, right, in the MMA community. It doesn't matter. Unless you're going to be willing to step up and risk everything. If he's willing to risk everything, if he wants to jump up and fight a big name like he says he wants to fight a Ben Askren, by all means, sir.
That is a huge jump.
By all means. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get one payday, and that's going to be it. He's good. He should work on stringing this long as much as he possibly can. And you know what he needs to do is he needs to tell Bellator, hey, you put these cards in Europe. You have them in, because Bellator's actually been good about it. Having cards in Italy, having cards in, not in France, but all over. Where was the last one that was in Europe somewhere? But in Ireland. When they put those cards there, hey, you have those cards in Europe, Conor McGregor is going to be in my corner. Because that's a huge, huge selling point.
Very, very much in agreement on that point. Moving on, though, for the main event of Bellator 198 was Fedor versus Frank Mir. And kind of a matchup I was very, very interested in. I was very excited about. And this fight ended with a knockout for Fedor in his favor. 48 seconds of the very first round. What are your thoughts on that?
I was, as you know, Josh, I like to pride myself on how I'm a fight nerd. I like to pride myself, in high school and stuff, watching Pride DVDs, UFC DVDs. This is when I first heard about this fight. I'm like, I thought like a lot of people did. Well, 10 years too late.
Yep.
And secretly, I'm getting excited, right? I'm getting excited because finally something I've wanted to see. I was like a little kid on Christmas. I really was. I was standing up. I was pacing in my living room. I was pacing back and forth, and it was everything that you could want in a 40-second something fight?
48 seconds.
48-second fight. It was everything. Both guys rocked. Mir got rocked initially. It seemed like Fedor got rocked. And then Fedor with the finish in a typical Fedor way. Old school Pride Fedor way.
Yeah.
I mean, just doesn't look overly powerful. Short shot, powerful, keeps everything tight. And it was like for those 48 seconds, all was right in the world of MMA. It didn't matter that this was a heavyweight Grand Prix with probably only about 4 or 5 actual heavyweights in it.
Oh, yeah.
It didn't matter that, it was 10 years too late. It didn't matter that middleweight Chael Sonnen was waiting to fight the winner. At this point, you had 2 of the best heavyweights of their time competing. And at least they put on a show. You've seen remember when Chael and Tito fought, right? It wasn't really that much fun. When who else? The Hoist Gracies of the world come all these comeback fights. It's never as fun as you hope it would be. This really was, and I was just thrilled.
I want to stay on the heavyweight Grand Prix and stay on the Bellator train. Moving on to Bellator 199, and we did see Ryan Bader win his fight against King Mo, and Ryan Bader now advances on. Right before we started this, we talked about that probably the most ideal matchup for you would be Ryan Bader versus Fedor.
It would be, and I'll tell you what, it's hard. I always have a problem with, and honestly, it works both ways. Like guys in their prime, and more, I guess more so UFC to Bellator, but like Ryan Bader was in his prime.
Yeah.
He was a top 5 light heavyweight. I believe he was coming off of a win when he left the UFC to go to Bellator. It just seems like, there's not much there for him to. Now I get it. If I'm Ryan Bader, I'm not faulting him. I would do the same thing. Make the most money you possibly can, because the fight game is short and there's not a lot there. But Ryan Bader now versus Matt Mitrione, it's fun. I guess you can sell that there. Bader's already the light heavyweight champion, but the win over King Mo, it doesn't do much for me. I guess it does help sell him a little bit because it shows he does have some hands.
Yeah.
Especially
since it ended in 15 seconds.
Yeah, it shows. Because, he's known for, obviously, his wrestling. So it shows he has those hands. They're going to be able to build that up. But, yes, you're right, Josh. Fedor versus Ryan Bader is the ideal matchup for me. That's the end-all, be-all. That is the best old school versus new school in his prime versus, best of all time. It's the best way for the tournament to end. Now, I believe it's still pinned to my Twitter account. I still believe that there is no way that if Mirko Cro Cop beats Roy Nelson at UFC 200, look at me, Bellator 200, there is no way. Bellator comes out like 2-3 weeks prior to 198 and says Mirko Cro Cop versus Roy Nelson is officially an alternate bout for the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix. There is no way, if Mirko Cro Cop wins, that Bellator does not find a way for Chael to get hurt or something to happen where he cannot fight Fedor and they make Fedor Emelianenko versus Mirko Cro Cop 2. This is the biggest, not Bellator's biggest opportunity, the biggest opportunity in MMA ever right now.
Quite possibly.
It is. This is years in the making. Cro Cop Fedor 1 is still talked about by MMA diehards everywhere. It's one of the first fights I like to show people when it's the best of the best. No matter what your thoughts were on Pride versus UFC, no matter what your thoughts are, these two are legends of the sport and are two of the most mysterious guys of the sport. They have highlight reels alone. You want to talk about ways to build up, it doesn't even have to be a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You're telling me on Paramount Sports Network, that having just their knockout reels alone, granted, I think the UFC owns a lot of those reels, so they can't do all of them. Yeah. But you get my point. They can't wait on it. They can't say, oh, well, if Fedor loses, we can do that fight later down the road. No. Too much stuff comes up. They will make it now. Now is the time. There is no time like the present, Joshua.
So, all right, I can see where you're coming from with that. That'd be very interesting. That would be a huge selling point for Bellator and MMA in general. So, totally get where you're coming from with that, Tim, and it would be super interesting. I know I would definitely be tuning in for that fight. But moving on from the heavyweight fighters, I want to talk about Aaron Pico. He was on this card as well. He won with TKO, 1 minute and 10 seconds in the first round.
They're finally bringing him along the way that they should. Now, to be fair, I shouldn't even say that because it's actually they're bringing along very similar. Zach Freeman at the time, 50-50 hindsight, 8-2 I think he was. He had 10 fights. His next fight, the guy had 10 fights, and then now 15 fights, and now this guy is over 20. So a little bit more advanced. Listen, the kid is showing that he is what they thought they were. I talked to you about this, the podcast after Aaron Pico lost. I believe that was the very best thing that could have happened to him.
Yeah.
Someone who is just naturally good at everything that he does. Like, not saying he doesn't work hard, not saying he doesn't bust his ass. I know he literally has like a travel bus to make sure that he's doing jiu-jitsu with Eddie Bravo. He's going to, what's Manny Pacquiao's gym with Freddie Roach? Whatever. He's doing that for his boxing, his wrestling, obviously with the world class. He is everywhere, literally everywhere, and for all facets of the MMA game. So not saying that he doesn't work hard, but he's just a freak naturally in everything that he does. So for him to lose and gain that fuel and to be submitted, to be choked out, to feel that, not to lose a stupid ass decision, right?
Oh,
to feel like, hey, this guy on that night was better than me. You're telling me the fact Bellator's doing it wrong now, in my opinion. Pico's on a 3-fight win streak. Bellator, guys, don't be pairing Zach Freeman up with Saad Awad. Don't do that. Give him guys he can beat.
Yeah.
Give him now 2, 3. Now they had him matched up against Zach Bucia at 197, who, that would have been a good fight. He probably would have been favored in that. But give him a couple guys here that he can beat. So, end of the year, summer of next year, your next big event, Pico versus Freeman, the rematch. Do it the right way.
Yeah.
No, do it the right way. Give Pico that chance for redemption. Give your young the kid is still so young. Pico is going to be in this sport for a very, very long time if he wants to be. Let right now someone like Zach Freeman be that light at the end of the day. I'll tell you what, though. Aaron Pico, he doesn't want that.
Yeah. He's
telling Bellator's, was it Mr. Chu is their not their promoter, but their matchmaker. He's asking for top 10, top 5 guys, and that's not going to stop. But let him continue on the way that Shane crushed him. When you beat Shane, Shane's a tough guy. Shane's a badass, man. So 145 pounds, obviously very tough. I'm interested to see what happens. You're talking about just over 6 minutes, I think, in his last 3 fights.
How many more fights do you think we're gonna see Aaron Pico fight out before he gets let's say a top 10 guy?
I don't know. I'm interested. I'm pretty interested that, and I haven't heard anyone talk about it, so shame on me because normally I'm on this stuff. But like the world team trials and stuff for wrestling are up. I thought he would at least make an attempt at that.
Yeah.
I don't believe he is. If he's sticking with fighting, it's going to be probably his next fight.
Okay.
He just fought a guy with 26 fights and beat him in a minute 10.
True.
So you're talking about 26, 30. So you're talking about fighting a guy with 45 combined fights over his last 2 fights, and he beat him in a minute and 47 seconds combined.
It's pretty impressive.
He's a stud. I would like to see him against some sort of I don't know. Like that's the thing. You can't say a wrestling guy because his wrestling's going to be better.
Yeah.
A jiu-jitsu guy maybe, but you don't want to put that pressure on him yet. Just to me, throw him out there against a tough guy next. Throw him out there against a guy who's going to take one of his punches, who's going to take his best shot. No disrespect to Christian, Morrison, or Lynn. Throw him in there with a guy who's going to take his best shot and say, okay, what's next? And then we'll see what happens.
Very true, very true. And Bellator, again, putting on some decent cards. So moving on, I want to talk about UFC 224. And man, 11 finishes on this card. Just to name a couple, we had rear naked choke, TKO from punches, corner stoppage, spinning wheel kick and punches, face crank Ezekiel choke, arm triangle, front kick to the face. What a crazy, crazy card to have that many finishes. I believe that is the record for UFC, is it not? Or close to it?
It's close to it if it's not.
I believe only two decisions total.
Only 2 decisions total. I'm bothered a little bit with Brazilian cards.
Why is that?
I'm just tired. Listen, Brazil should be very similar to any other country. Europe, you've seen them cut down a lot of the cards in Europe. Right?
Yeah.
You've heard in the past that preparation for weight cutting, things of that matter, were hard in Brazil because they don't have common things like sweatsuits, like Gatorade, like, you know, just typical things that you would need for weight cutting, the weight cutting process. And now you hear things, we'll get into her a little bit more later, but like with Raquel Pennington, about how the doctors there were terrible. You had the guys over at Sucker Punch Management. I'm sure you heard about their story, Josh.
What's that?
Getting held up at gunpoint.
Oh, I did not hear.
Yeah. Sucker Punch Management. Brian, awesome guy that literally held up at gunpoint, gun to his head, had to give up his wallet, phone, everything there. I don't get how being the organization, right, in the world, you are traveling worldwide, and you are setting up your athletes and the people they have with them to fail. I have, I would have been more upset if this was at one of their like smaller areas in Brazil, but they're in Rio. I get that you can't prevent all of this. I understand that, but at some point, do something. Be proactive about it. Just now it seems like they're just getting their hangs of it out here in the U.S. With the Performance Center, and I just feel like they are behind for where they should be. They're behind. You're one of the best organizations in the world. You don't have this. You're a $1 billion company, right? You're a $1 billion company. How are you going outside of the country and having these different things happen? How are you, like, and I know it opens up a whole nother bag of worms. How are you having one of your fighters miss weight by 7 pounds?
That is true.
How the hell does that happen? How are you
almost making the next weight?
How are you allowing that to happen?
Almost making the next weight.
That's embarrassing for you. How don't you have rules and regulations in place to say, hey, you know what? If you're not within at least this much, I don't care what the commission says. We as an organization aren't going to let you do it.
Yeah.
And beyond that, if you want to, that's fine. We are giving your opponent the opportunity to take 50% of your purse.
And obviously that fighter you're talking about is one Mackenzie Dern. And that was going to be my next question for you. I believe she was giving, was it 30%? And of course, 10% goes, I believe, to the commission.
Yep.
So 20% goes to her.
Yep.
Should she have asked for 50%? And then she would have ended up with 40% for herself.
Here's the problem, though, that you see. And I get there's other things right. There's been UFC fighters who have asked for, well, no. I want an extra 10,000.
Yeah.
I want an extra. There's been fighters who have asked for that, and they've been pushed to the side. I mean, now I get there's other factors to it, but look at Leslie Smith.
Yeah.
Right? Leslie Smith has, whatever her lawsuit, but she was still asking for more, saying, no, if I'm going to fight, I'm going to be making, and they kind of played her. So someone like ABC, Amanda Cooper, she's 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
She's up against this monster name that she knows the promotion is behind.
Yeah.
This girl comes out 7 pounds over. She knew already that, and don't forget, she's in another country.
Oh, yeah.
She's struggling. Now she has to decide, okay, do I take the 30%/20%, or do I fight it, possibly get this fight scrapped completely, and then my boss is pissed at me because I just shot down one of their stars.
Yeah.
This is absolutely egregious. It's egregious by the organization to allow this to happen. They put their fighters in bad situations, especially when fighting top stars. If you're not a top star and you're fighting one of the big names, they're setting them up to fail. It's not fair, and it's not right that they do this. ABC should have never been put in this situation ever. She should never have been put in this situation to be like, if I say no, then it's going to.
Yeah, she could potentially lose her job.
Yeah, if I get this fight scrapped, and beyond that, how isn't there so? I take that back. It's not the organization's problem to make sure that their fighter's making weight. But I know that they said that the commission was close to just telling Dern that she couldn't compete that day. But why were they? Why was she able to? And this isn't the first time.
No.
This happened to her in LFA.
Multiple times.
She consistently has missed weight. Cooper made jokes about how she was going to put donuts in front of her hotel room door because she knew she couldn't resist them. This is less of a knock on Dern. Listen, she is a young fighter. She's trying to, she is going to continue. She wants to make the best weight class for her. She thinks she can make it. I get that.
Yeah.
I get it. That's just the mental behind it. This isn't even a problem I have with her. This is more of the UFC at this point, when she got there, when they weighed her in, when the commission was saying, hey, you know what? This fight is in jeopardy. This is the UFC saying, hey, I get that we're trying to build her. I get that she's had, she's the third to last fight of the night. But you know what? For your safety, for Amanda Cooper's safety, we're scrapping this fight because it's not right. End of story. It's just not right.
Does Mackenzie Dern move up a weight class in
Absolutely. Her next fight? Absolutely she does. Well, I mean,
she did come out at the post-fight press conference and stated that the UFC obviously is backing her and they are investing in her, and they are bringing her to the Performance Institute to get her weight management under control and the cutting process under control, because she thinks that she can do it, but she knows she can't, and the UFC will help her do it. So it almost leads me to think that she is not going to move up a weight class.
She might think she's not. Listen, she was at the MMA lab, right? Ben Henderson, tons of amazing fighters at the MMA lab. They do things the right way there. Now, when I'm told, they left on good terms. Mackenzie Dern does a lot of traveling. She is all over the place. She is, she called the lab her home, but they essentially asked her to let's leave cordially just because she just wasn't there enough. She wasn't in Arizona enough to develop the way that they wanted it to. And John Crouch was just, it's not fair to anybody. Yeah. It's not fair. She wants to be in California. Let's not keep forcing her to come out to Arizona. Now, maybe that distance with your home gym is the issue. But Crouch, I remember when she was in LFA, Crouch was pissed. He doesn't put up with that shit. He doesn't deal with that missing weight. He's a very cut and dry, black and white type guy. He does not put up with that. So I don't know, unless Mackenzie Dern's going to, she's in California, so I guess, I don't know. I don't know, Josh. The whole thing is mind-boggling to me. She's already with a great team. I don't get why she wouldn't have stayed there. If she thinks the Performance Institute is what it's going to take, then that's what it's going to take.
We'll see what happens if she moves up a weight class or not.
My problem is she was 7-0, whatever it was, 6-0 in MMA, and she was invited to leave by one of the best camps in MMA. That does not bode well for me.
Yeah. Lyoto Machida and Vitor Belfort. Vitor's going away fight, his swan song, and Lyoto kicks him in the face and knocks him out. It was very interesting, man, to see Vitor get planted in the face like that. But then Machida's reaction afterwards, he just put his hands on his hips and just looked at him. He knew that he was out. He knew that it was over. I'm glad he didn't follow up with any punches, because that would have been absolutely awful. The referee did a good job jumping in right away. But kudos to Lyoto Machida for not jumping in like that, but going out that way, little, I don't know. What do you think?
I think, first and foremost, that's probably my favorite photo of 2018. Unreal.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who took it. But it's you have I think it was Herb Dean up close on top of Vitor, and it's kind of blurry, and it's zoomed in more on Machida bowing in the background. Honestly, I saw that picture and I got goosebumps. Talk about being a fight nerd. I legitimately got goosebumps looking at that picture. Absolutely unbelievable. In terms of the front kick itself, first off, Vitor's career is just all over the place. I mean, there's so many high points and low points. It's all over the place. I think probably the only fighter in the UFC to get front kick knockout twice.
Yeah.
Absolutely absurd. And just, I don't know if I'm more sad for Vitor or more happy for Lyoto. I thought Lyoto was going to get demolished by Eric Anders, his last fight. In what was that, February, I think, because we were at an event that night in Brazil. My only concern, it's not a concern, but can Lyoto fight outside of Brazil? This is another one of my, concerns of, because you know who is policing the Brazilian Commission in Brazil for the UFC. It's the UFC.
Yeah.
It's not a real commission. So when I see guys like, okay, Lyoto, who's had his issues in the past, he comes back, he does whatever with Anders, and now has this great performance against Vitor. How does this translate to the United States? There's far too many times we've seen fighters go from Brazil to the U.S., and it's just not there for whatever reason.
I agree.
So, Vitor said that this was going to be his last fight. I would love to see...
In the UFC, though.
Well, no, he said he was going to retire, was his name. But I would love to see... Listen, I don't care. It's fight sport. I've seen it all over Twitter. Give me TRT Vitor, swole to the gills, looking like Overeem, fighting and rising against freaking Gabby Garcia, for all I care. I don't care. I want TRT, Monster Vitor, just fighting. Let him make freaking a couple mil in Japan. Just juice to the gills and fighting whoever. Who cares?
Vitor, of course, from UFC 12 to UFC 224.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is. It really is.
Moving on to the co-main event, Kevin Gastelum beats Jacare and split decision. Are you shocked it went Kevin Gastelum's way? Being in Brazil.
I wouldn't say I was shocked, no. I thought it could have gone either way, in all honesty. I'm happy for Kelvin. I know that he believes now that he's, he should be the next title shot.
Does he get the next title shot?
Josh, I don't know. I truly don't know. When you look at the middleweight division, I mean, things quickly, cleared out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, things quickly went from, you had such a log jam there at the top with Romero, with Whitaker, with Bisping, with Rockhold, with all of these people, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we got Whitaker versus Romero 2. Bisping's looking for one more fight before he retires. Rockhold is it appears is gonna go up to light heavyweight and fight Alexander Gustafsson.
Yeah. And you gotta remember
3-4 was Gastelum Souza. Now the only thing I don't like, and Chris Weidman's hurt.
Yeah, and you gotta remember Gastelum's coming off of a win to Michael Bisping, but right before that was a loss to Chris Weidman.
I almost think like it's one of two ways. Like the UFC's not. Honestly, I don't think the UFC has a choice if they want to book a middleweight title fight, but to make Kelvin Gastelum versus whoever wins Whitaker Romero.
Yeah.
Because the only other alternative is to fight Gastelum versus Weidman again. That's the only alternative right now.
Yeah. Which I think if I was Gastelum, I would probably opt to sit out until figuring out.
What's Gastelum going to say?
Yeah.
If the UFC tells him, Kevin, you can either take this fight against Chris Weidman for the number one contender, and we will guarantee you a title shot, or we are going to give Chris Weidman the winner of Yoel Romero versus Robert Whitaker. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
That's the option right now. That's the option for both men.
It is.
If anything, Gastelum should be jumping for joy. Great. A chance to redeem myself. Weidman's the one who should say, whoa, my last fight is when I subbed this guy. Now, where the UFC has some leverage there, prior to that sub, he lost 3 in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
So, if I'm Weidman, it's, hey, I just beat him, but if I beat him again, I get a title shot. And if I'm Gastelum, it's, hey, I just lost to him. I get a chance to redeem myself. That would be my 3rd in a row. And then I get a title shot. There's no one else remotely close. You're talking about, after that, you have Rockhold, again, light heavyweight. Brunson, he's coming out. He just lost. Bisping, he's off 2 losses. Gastelum beat him. David Branch, Brad Tavares. I mean, Uriah Hall. There's Lyoto Machida. Then you start. There's no middleweight went from being a logjam to boom, old, and we need people. But that's the way the UFC works. I promise you, Josh. Watch a month from now, you're gonna see all over these sites. What's the UFC gonna do at the middleweight division? What are they gonna do? There's no stars. There's no one here, especially if not Robert Whittaker. Especially if Yoel Romero wins.
Yeah.
You know, a guy is that old. If he wins, it's going to be, God, he's so old. The UFC has it. I mean, what are they going to do? I do think, though, it depends who wins. If Yoel Romero beats Robert Whittaker, I think they four-pass Kelvin Gastelum, and they give Weidman the shot at Romero. Make that rematch. Weidman was winning that whole fight till the third. Romero caught him, knocked him out brutally. That would be a good fight. If it's Whittaker, then I think it opens it up a little bit more.
All right, very interesting. I do want to move on to the main event of this card, obviously, Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. And Nunes wins this fight, obviously. But what I really want to ask you, Tim, what were your thoughts going from the 4th round to the 5th round when Raquel Pennington even came out and said that she told her corner that she was done. She did not want to continue, and her corner came out and talked her into it. I read a report, I believe it was on MMA Junkie earlier today, saying that he told Raquel that, you know, if you don't go out there and fight, and you could have had one of the most amazing comebacks ever, right? You could have went out there and had the best round of your life. And you could have knocked out Amanda. If you would have quit right then and there, we would have never known what would have happened.
I want to start with, there are a lot of MMA journalists out there who were appalled by what happened. Ariel Helwani on the top of the list, right? All national news was everywhere. Look at this. Listen to the corner. How could they do this? Blah blah blah. Josh, what is a corner there for? What are they there for? To not just the second you say I can't do it, to say, oh, okay, come give me a hug. This is fighting. This is fighting. Are you kidding me? You're gonna be upset? You're gonna be mad because the corner pushed her? Did she say, hey, I have a broken nose, I can't breathe, I can't see? But no, she just said, I'm done. She's in the moment. She just got her ass kicked for 4 rounds. I get the Ariel Helwanis of the world saying, you know, they didn't coach her up afterwards, that they're not going to be the ones who are waking up in the middle of the night. But yes, I get all that. But this is the precipice of her entire career. This is everything. This is what her whole... She may not ever get another title fight in her entire career. This might be it. For all she knows, she could get 2 more fights in the UFC and be done. Never fight another fight in the UFC ever. Go on a losing streak and be done and over with. You're going to go and judge them for... She should be pushed. Corners are there to push you. They're there to make you better. And they want to give them a hard time because they try to push her to be the best that she could be. It's bullshit. It's not right. That is what she's there. It reminded me, now it wasn't as nearly as one-sided, but if you're telling me that between rounds 4 and 5 of Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate said, hey, I can't do it anymore. Which she very well could have. She was getting beat up pretty good. What happened? She came back and had one of those amazing comebacks, right? Yeah. Got the rear naked choke. This corner shouldn't be applauded. They shouldn't be crucified, though, either. They did what they were supposed to do. They pushed their fighter. She wasn't in imminent danger. It's not like she couldn't see. It's not like she was injured. She just said, no, I can't. It reminded me of kind of like an immature athlete. You see all the time, I can't do this. Go run a mile. I can't. Put your head down, take it, and go. She have a broken nose? Sure. She's in the fight game. You think that's her first broken nose? It's disgusting that people are crucifying her coaches for doing what they should have.
And you got to think, too, because the coaches in the corner, they probably know her a lot better than anybody else, especially these MMA journalists and everything like that. They know her the best out of anybody. They know her limits. They know the expectations that she sets for herself, what they set for her. They know how far she can be pushed.
If she says, hey, I can't do it, and the ref's like, are you sure you don't want to give it another go? That's one thing. It's her team building her up. It's her team. Raquel, no. You're going to go out there, and did you hear a fight from her after that in the corner? It's the part that people aren't talking about. She said, I can't do it. Did you hear her? No, I really can't. I'm hurt. But yeah. No. She was mentally broken at that point. That's what that was. She was mentally broken. Did she go out in the 5th and get her ass kicked? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But you know what? There is something to be said, and I don't care what any old man thought, whatever. A fighter who quits on the stool. You've heard fighters talk about how tapping out versus going to sleep. I think that's extreme. But quitting on the stool and just saying, no, I've had enough, that shows a lot more about your character. Her team didn't let her do that. She went out there. She's fought the best she could, and it is what it is.
Before we get to our interview with Gillian, does Amanda Nunes, is that next fight with Cyborg?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't... Should it be? Yes. It should be this summer, if she'll take it. I don't know. That fight was supposed to happen before. The 145-pound division is kind of a joke right now. There's not a ton of people who, hey, they have to get the next 135-pound shot. Jessica Andrade, who I believe she's still at 135 pounds. She's the one who's probably on the doorstep. I know Shevchenko went down to 125. Jessica Andrade, no, she's down. I'm sorry, I'm thinking wrong. So, I mean, outside of that, you're talking Marianne Renault, who refused to fight Cyborg for the 145-pound title. There's no one there. So, yeah, it should be, unless there's no one there.
Yeah.
There's no one there for her whatsoever. So, it should be. I mean, if I'm the UFC, or I'm saying, hey, just do like with Anderson. Go up to 145 pounds. Fight someone.
Yeah.
I don't care who. Go up to 145 pounds. Fight somebody. We'll do a super fight. We'll put you on UFC, their summer show, their 4th of July card. And, you'll be one of the main attractions there.
Makes sense. All right, we're going to go ahead and get to our interview, and then we'll be back right after that.
Gillian Robertson.
Gillian.
Not who'd you call him? Juan?
No, I said Julian.
Julian, yeah, not Julian. Gillian.
We'll be back real quick. Let's get her on the phone.
We are here with the UFC's Gillian, the Savage Robertson. Gillian, how are you?
I'm doing great today. Thank you.
So, Gillian, obviously you were coming off your tough 26 season, ended December of last year. So some time has passed now. You got to participate on the tough finale back in December, like you said. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about the show as a whole. Just what was your outlook on how the show went, the experience, and just what it all, kind of how it all played out for you?
I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity to be part of The Ultimate Fighter. It was definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I feel like all the coaches there and all the girls were absolutely awesome, and they made the experience really enjoyable. It's like the tensions of the house, just being locked up in there and obviously having to live with your opponent can definitely mess with you sometimes, but it was definitely a great experience overall.
And what about the fact that, it's one thing that you get the opportunity to be on The Ultimate Fighter, right? But you get thrown in there, you're the 15 seed, and who do you draw in your very first fight? One of the legends in women's martial arts, Barb Honchak. Has been a pioneer for the sport. What did, getting that fight mean to you?
That fight meant everything to me because just me growing up, I was watching girls like Barb Honchak, like you said, she's a pioneer, she's a veteran of the sport, so to be able to share the cage with her was just an honor in general. But I definitely went in there thinking I was like thinking I was on the same level as her. I definitely didn't look at her as a superior in that way, but it was awesome to be able to have that experience.
And, do you watch fights outside, yourself? You said growing up, you watched it, but now, like, do you watch The Ultimate Fighter?
Oh, yeah. Mixed martial arts is the only thing I really pay attention to. I don't really do any other sports or have any other hobbies, so I'm always watching other fighters, especially girls in the weight class.
So then I have to ask, what are your thoughts on, the flyweight season compared to the strawweight season? The strawweight season, it seemed like there was a lot of kind of inner turmoil in the house. A lot of people, complain about picking on me. There was some stuff in this one with obviously Lauren Murphy and Eddie Alvarez, but it did, for overall in the house, it didn't seem like it was nearly as bad as the strawweight season. Do you think that that's a fair assessment, or was there some stuff that just kind of didn't make it?
I think that's definitely a fair assessment. I feel like all the girls in the house this time were all professionals. We knew that we're in there to fight, and we're all, like I said, just professionals. We were staying courteous to everybody else there, and there was no real turmoil. And it's like, even when there was, it was there for a second, and then it would fade away, or like somebody would apologize. Obviously, it's 16 strangers living in the same house together, so there was little things every now and then, but nothing ever. There was never any real drama.
And what about the whole Lauren Murphy situation? Obviously, you don't have to speak on any team's behalf or anything, but just from your perspective, out of nowhere, she's kind of just on your team there, towards the end. What was that like, and was it just awkward? What was going on?
It wasn't awkward at all. It was awesome to be able to train with the girls. It's like they separated us into teams, so we have the best 16 girls in the world, but you can only train with 7 other girls. You don't ever get to see the other 8 girls.
Very true. Very true. So let's, you ended up losing to Barb, obviously, but you get the chance to fight in the tough finale, were you, how relieved were you that you got that opportunity? Because obviously they try to fill the card with contestants, but it's not always the case.
I was definitely excited. Obviously, this is a dream come true right here, is being able to make it to the UFC, being able to fight for the UFC. So I was more than excited. I'm always ready to fight. So it definitely, I didn't expect, I think I did expect it, but I was still very thankful for it.
And not only do you get the opportunity, but you go out there, you defeat Emily Whitmire by arm lock in the very first round. Just try to put into words what that felt like. You're only 22 years old. You just finished a whole Ultimate Fighter season. Your life's on TV for X amount of weeks, and now you go out there and you get that impressive victory. Well, what did that feel like?
It's an absolutely indescribable feeling. Like I said, all my life is mixed martial arts. Since I was 16, I started training like cardio kickboxing, and all I wanted to do from that moment was to be able to compete at this level, to compete in the UFC, the highest level of mixed martial arts, really is like the biggest promotion in the game. So it's like it was just absolutely unreal to me. It was just crazy to be able to actually accomplish that.
I want to ask you brought up, you've been kind of addicted to it since you were 16. I've seen, in some past interviews, you've talked about that where, it was I believe you said your 16th birthday present was to, get kickboxing lessons and go to that class. And you've also stated how, a lot of people who you've known in the past, when you tell them what you're doing now, they're kind of like, wait, what? They don't really believe that that's something that you would do. It's almost out of character from who you were. What made you, is it something that you always kind of hid from people? You've just always liked the fight game. Was it boxing growing up? What, instilled this in you as a young woman?
I really have made me decide to take my first kickboxing class. Whenever I was 15, I just kept on asking my parents. It was just something that I wanted to do, and I really had no idea what got it in my head. Before I found martial arts, I wanted to be a vet, and all I did was dedicate my time to animals and just volunteering at different organizations to help animals and rescue animals. So like you said, it's completely out of character for me, but I really have no idea what drove me to it. It was just, I took my first kickboxing class, and then a couple months later I took my first MMA class, and then a year and a half later I took my first jiu-jitsu class, and I kept on falling deeper and deeper, and then 2 years into the game I had my first fight, and I just felt I couldn't turn back from that point. I was just in love with the game.
So you go from healing animals, dedicating all your time to animals, and then like you said, everything's dedicated to the martial arts world. What was it like even for you? I mean, obviously you're taking the kickboxing classes, you're taking the jiu-jitsu classes, but that first time sparring, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, right? I mean, you're talking 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. So
yeah, probably about 5 or 6 years ago would have been my first time sparring, and I remember there was this one girl, I actually still train with her. She's an amateur fighter out of Port St. Lucie now, Gabby Donate, and she used to come in every single day, and she trained a long time before me and just head kick me, just hard as anything. And I used to remember, like, I would go in and just be like, yeah, she's actually going hard on me. I'd get excited about it because a lot of the boys don't want to go hard with the one girl that's in the class. So to be able to have another girl that was actually going hard on me, it was something that was exciting for me. I liked that somebody would be able to push the pace and try to push me more.
Absolutely. And where did you, obviously you're training at ATT now, correct?
Yes.
And obviously, what made you choose them? Was it just location? Obviously, you just kind of, were able to fall into the lap of one of the, greatest schools in mixed martial arts?
Well, training in Port St. Lucie, Florida, where Dean Thomas used to have his own American Top Team school there. So I started training under him, and then just over the years, he ended up moving down to Coconut Creek just to work with the bigger name fighters. And so I just sort of followed my coach down here so I could stay with the same coach. And of course, I've got the best team in the world down here now because of it.
And I also heard in the past, you were still, through the Ultimate Fighter, you were working at Chili's as a hostess. Is that still the case?
No, that is not the case anymore.
It's not the case.
I'm full-time just training.
So what's that? I always like to ask young fighters, and it's very rare to have someone who's in your position, right? Who you see a lot more in with males than females, but where they have, since they were 14, 15, either through wrestling or jiu-jitsu, they come up through some type of physical sport like this, and then they've already been in the sport for so long. You're only 22, 23. You're probably 4 or 5 years out from the prime of your career, and you've already been in the sport for 6 or 7 years, or some aspect of the sport for 6 or 7 years. What's life like for you, just being such a young prospect with so much in front of you?
As I said, it's just unreal to me to this level even. But so far away from my prime, I have so many years to grow, and I just know that I have an insane amount of potential, and I just want to dedicate everything to this sport because of it. It's like I see girls who are just beating me by little bits, who are still just beating me in the gym, but they're like 8 years ahead of me. They're a lot older than me, so it's like it feels good that I know that I have a lot of time to catch up to girls like Joanna or Amanda and things like that.
Just a few more minutes here with Gillian Robertson. Again, she's a Ultimate Fighter 26 alumni now. So, Gillian, I have to ask, obviously, are you staying at 125? Obviously, 3 of your first 5 fights were at 115. Is 125 your home for the future here?
I think 125 is now going to be my home for the future. When I was fighting 115, I was just a little bit smaller. I feel like I've grown up a little bit more, just becoming an adult more over the last few years. So I used to walk around 112, and now I'm walking around 140. So I think 125 is a better choice for me.
Absolutely. And what's you've had a good 3 months here now, almost 4 months. What's the plan here for fighting in 2018?
That's a good question. I've been trying to get a fight since my last post-fight interview. I'm ready for anything at any time. have told the UFC multiple times I want any opponent, anytime. I'm ready for it. And they just keep on telling me they're looking for an opponent, looking for the right spot for me. So I'm hoping for the best, hopefully soon. I'd like to be as active as possible. I just love being in there in general. I love being in the cage. I love to fight. So I would love to do it as often as possible.
Is it frustrating at all for you, just not being able to get that fight?
It's definitely frustrating. It's like I'm working constantly and never know when my payday is right now, but I just keep on staying in the gym, stay busy, and get myself better every day, and I'll be ready for any girl that's coming at me. Well,
I know it's a question that you're going to be lenient with, but who? If you had your choice, who would you fight right now?
I feel like a lot of the girls from the house would probably be good matchups for me. I feel like I'm really open to anybody, though. I'm ready to get back in there.
Well, I guess we will have to wait and see again. Gillian the Savage Robertson. Gillian, we really appreciate the time. We look forward to seeing what you have for us here in 2018. Hopefully it'll be a 23rd birthday present for you. Kickboxing was your 16th birthday present. 23rd, maybe you'll have a fight. We really appreciate the time. Before we let you go, are there any sponsors, coaches, teammates, friends, family that you want to thank?
I just want to shout out to Dean Thomas and Anthony Esposito, who have been my coaches since day one, and, of course, American Top Team. And, yeah, that's it.
All right, Gillian, we really appreciate the time. We look forward to hearing the announcement of your next fight, and we'll be talking to you real soon.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care. That was Gillian Robertson, not Julian. So, Gillian, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. And best of luck to you versus Meatball Molly McCann coming up here in just a few weeks.
Moving on, Tim, some breaking news, some interesting stories that are going on in MMA. Chuck Liddell saying he's coming out of retirement to fight another fighter coming out of retirement, Tito Ortiz. Rumor is it's possibly going to be with Golden Boy Promotions MMA.
Dirty Oscar De La Hoya saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to throw my money out there. This sounds like an old school affliction card to me, is what it sounds like. I love it. Damn right. I mean, it's gonna be a $25 pay-per-view probably.
I'm gonna buy it.
We're not buying shit. We're streaming that illegally. We're pirating that. Oscar De La Hoya. I'm sorry, but I love it. Give me old Chuck Liddell. Give me old Tito Ortiz. The build-up, the pressers for it. I will love it. I'll eat it all up the same way I ate up Fedor versus Mir. I'll eat this up, but it'll be even better because there will be no respect there. And I was thinking about it earlier, there's all the John Jones versus and Chuck Liddell banter back and forth. Yeah. And I'm not a big John Jones fan, but
his comments
oh my God, they were brilliant. Genius quotes back. If you think about it, John Jones is just the modern day Chuck Liddell. He's a better fighter than Chuck was, but what was Chuck known for back in the day?
His mohawk, his looping left hands, and cocaine and hookers. Yeah.
That's what he was known for. There's tons of stories of people going to his hotel room, opening the door, and there being like 10 naked women just laying around, and Chuck being just lit out of his mind. That's what I imagine John Jones' life is. Maybe not anymore, since he's had to clean up his act a little bit, but they're very similar. I'm happy for Chuck. I don't think he'll ever be back in the UFC, but Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz 3, sign me up.
50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, had a lunch/dinner date with Scott Coker.
No.
Is he there to become a fighter?
No.
Is he there to co-promote?
No.
Is he there to be a manager? Or are they looking at starting their own boxing
Listen
thing?
here, World Star Hip Hop.
I'm just asking.
Listen here. He was there. 50 Cent may get into the fight game. He might, tag along with someone, and he was picking Scott Coker's brain, is all it was. And all of these people were like, it's going to be Wiz Khalifa versus 50 Cent. Get the hell out of here. If that happens, I might lose all respect for Bellator. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, that would have. I don't know, man. That would be. I think he's there to become a manager. I think that's what it would have to be.
And maybe there's a shot of that, but that's more like the boxing world. It's not so much the MMA world.
Yeah, I just don't want to see. 50 Cent in a.
I have no doubt that you will be wanting to talk about it on the podcast.
Although 50 Cent is a former Golden Gloves boxer.
Yeah,
remind you. So.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Moving on, Dana White and what is the name of his boxing promotion? Is it
Zuffa Boxing?
All right. So, who were they looking at getting as their number one fighter?
There was Anthony Joshua, and then
it was Danny
Castillo.
Right? Castillo.
Danny Castillo. Danny Castillo is the former WEC fighter. Hold on, this is gonna drive me nuts.
A blank right now. But that would be a very, very, very big thing for the start of Zuffa Boxing here if that did actually happen for them. Which, did you get the name yet? I'm drawing a blank.
It is Mikey Garcia.
Mikey Garcia. Sorry. Mikey Garcia. So that would be huge for Zuffa Boxing.
Listen, if Dana can sell, this goes back to Dana selling his ideas to WME, right? When he had his buddies in charge, he could kind of say, "Hey, we're going to do this," but the Anthony Joshuas of the world, the Mikey Garcias of the world, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh yeah, at least.
Bring these guys on for years at a time. If they can get both Garcia and Joshua, that's a way to build a brand. That's a way to build, but it's not going to be Zuffa Boxing anymore, right? I mean, so what's Zuffa Boxing really like? Is that going to coincide with WME at all, or is this just Dana's own project where he's doing it with the Fertitta brothers still? He's looking. Who knows? But hey, if you can get those guys, I'm all on board with that.
Last but not least of what I want to talk about, do you think for Michael Bisping, his last fight, should it be against Lyoto Machida?
Yeah, I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. Why not? Let two old school guys. If Bisping wins, he goes out against a guy who's just coming off an amazing knockout. It's a fight he can win, and it's a fight Machida can win. If Machida wins, then it puts him on track. 3 wins in a row.
Yeah,
he's right there. We talked about the middleweight division earlier and kind of how they're on the precipice of being too old. I wouldn't mind that at all. So, that wouldn't be bad.
That's all I really had, Tim. Did you have anything else?
No, there's just so much in the world of MMA, so many stories. I know the one I'm looking into is Sacramento Sheriff's Office is investigating Nate Diaz for alleged battery. That's somewhat new here. I'm not sure how much that's been talked about. My guy, Jose Shorty Torres, interested in potentially pursuing featherweight to have 3 belts then. That would be a flyweight, a bantamweight, and a featherweight title. Maybe I'll see if next week we can talk to him and I'll have him on the show. Because him and I are pretty close. The other thing I want to say is Dana White, I mentioned UFC Unfiltered podcast. Not necessarily promoting them, but Dana White was on there, it was this week or last week, torching Ariel Helwani again. Was it 2 weeks ago, Nico Montano, that whole thing came up. Montano torched Ariel. And it turns out, according to Dana at least, that all of Helwani's information was coming from the Shevchenko camp. And the Shevchenko camp was telling Dana, no, that's not what we told him. We told him that we were getting frustrated, not the UFC. And he essentially just called Ariel a crybaby bitch on the show, told him that no one from the UFC is talking to Ariel Helwani. Not just continuing that feud. That is one of the most bizarre. It's rare you see the top journalist of a sport just hated by the top organization.
Actually, there was one more thing that I did have. The former NFL football player is getting a shot Greg Hardy with the UFC.
No. This is another thing that bothers me.
The Contender Series.
It bothers me.
Yeah.
It does. Yahoo Sports, former ex-NFL player, gets his shot in the UFC. How aren't people looking into Dana White Contender Series? It's named that for legal reasons, right? It's not the UFC. It's not the UFC, exactly. Buddy. He gets his shot to maybe get in the UFC. I hope he gets his clock cleaned. I hope he just gets torched. I know. I was hoping that he got fed into Juan Adams, who's one of the top prospects. He's getting a shot on the Contender Series as well this summer. I don't care for Greg Hardy. I've told you both, Tom's here as well now. I told you both in numerous conversations that I think it's just obnoxious for the UFC to come out and act all high and mighty in all the ways that they do and then bring in someone like Greg Hardy. I think it's a bad look. Not saying people can't grow, people can't get better, but for everything they say about other fighters that they've said can't fight here because of this, that, or the other, and now someone with his history, just because he's an NFL player, he's getting his shot. I don't care for it.
Yeah, he is fighting another former NFL player, Austin Lane.
Mm-hmm.
So Austin Lane, I believe his record's pretty decent right now.
Yeah, he's
right?
not bad. I think ex-Eagle, isn't he? Isn't Austin Lane
I believe.
Eagle?
Yeah, I think he played for 3 different teams. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens. But again, somebody with the history of Greg Hardy, I cannot believe the UFC is contemplating going that route. Again, it is the Contender Series for Dana White, but yet at the same time, still affiliated with the UFC of some capacity.
Yep.
So that is all we have for today. Again, we hope you guys enjoyed the comeback of the MMAnews.com podcast, powered by Pony Cake Sports. And you guys can always follow us on Twitter at Pony Cake Sports, at Fight Talk Tim. I won't make fun of your Twitter handle this time.
I appreciate it.
You guys can always email us, MMAnewspodcast@gmail.com. And you guys could always go to the website, MMAnews.com. Check out all of Tim's articles, his interviews, everything that he's got going on there. And, yeah, until next time, we'll see you.
Peace.